Hello and welcome back to Roberto the Hornet for another video, and it is Premier League predictions this time for match week number 4 of the 2023 to 24 season. So let's get straight into the juicy bits here. We're going to look at, because of the fact that this Friday, tomorrow, is the deadline day summer window closing. So I'm going to just go through some of the main business that we can talk about from each of the clubs so far this crazy transfer window. And that should hopefully help us to inform our predictions going into this weekend's games in match week number 4. With, of course, that first game on Sky Sports, Luton Town, their first game at Kenilworth Road in the Premier League. Let's see if they can handle and inform West Ham team who are looking good near the top of the table. But it will be very interesting for sure. And we'll get straight into it after we look back on last week. But before we do that, as I mentioned, we're going to see what the transfers are saying. So, recent transfers, obviously Ainsley Maitland-Niles leaving Arsenal after a few loans out to various clubs. We also there saw the transfer of Marquinhos. That's not quite worked out. He's gone out on loan to Nantes from France. Then we've also got Kai Havertz. He's been a big talking point at Arsenal. And it's not been a good start to the season for him. It just doesn't feel like in that Arsenal team he has really much of a role, and he's not really affecting things. He's not really a good tackler. He's not really a good finisher. And so what is he actually doing there in that team? It just seems a bit of an odd one when Arsenal's midfield last season was so settled with that midfield of Thomas Partey, that midfield of the likes of Granit Xhaka. Obviously he has left, so that is a role that someone like Declan Rice has had to fill. But I do feel Rice has been good so far. But the problem with bringing in Havertz is he doesn't want to play that number 9 role. So you're kind of playing him almost as a number 10 at times, but he can also drop into the 8 role or the 6 role. And at times he's been playing that kind of number 6 role where he's not really a defensive midfielder, kind of a defensive midfielder, but also can get forward. But he's not really showing that. So it's a bit of an issue, I think. How does Havertz make the most of his time at Arsenal? It's just not really worked so far, but maybe he could go on a run and look better. It's just, I think the jury's out still, to be honest, and maybe the jury's decided it's not looking good, Brev. But it's only 3 games, so we'll give it time. But it's just, I'm not sure. I was never sure about that transfer, but we'll see how that one goes. Then Pablo Mari, obviously he was brought in as a kind of squad player, but he's not really got the chance. So he went to Monza, and there was some news about Pablo Mari, having some health risks, something about one of his family members, or he was put into risk. I think he's all fine now. I think the person that robbed him or something is all kind of sorted as far as I'm aware. But if that's not the case, then I hope that he's all well and he's all safe. Granit Xhaka, obviously we just mentioned him. That has been a hole for Arsenal to fill. But I do feel that Declan Rice has done a good job doing that. However, with Declan Rice, that although he did score actually quite a few goals for West Ham last season, Rice is not going to sacrifice that defensive midfield to then push forward and get some chances and score some goals. So therefore, Granit Xhaka, although he did pop up with goals last season, that number 6 for Arsenal is just much deeper. So that does mean that Havertz has some license if he starts, which is not always a given in my view, but he has some license to go forward. But at the same time, without Granit Xhaka, and you've got someone like Thomas Partey sometimes filling in at right back, and obviously Xhaka is a big loss, so it means that sometimes the likes of Ødegaard, the likes of Havertz have to drop back and help out Declan Rice, because he can't do it all on his own. But I think Rice has been so far looks very good. We know how good he was at West Ham, and we know how good a player he is for England, but it's just, I think he has done well to fit into that Xhaka role. Then Kieran Tierney, obviously that's not quite worked out. There was talks of him going to a few teams, I think. Maybe was Celtic one of them? I heard some rumours around that, but ended up going to Real Sociedad on loan. So that does mean that there's a bit more, competition. Sorry, not competition, but there's a bit less competition at the left-back spot for Arsenal now. And that is an interesting thing, because when I look at that Arsenal defence now, it looks a bit different to how it did last season. Obviously, we had the season before last, 21-22, Tierney was playing like pretty much all the games, and then he got injured. and some players had to fill in. They kind of had sometimes some makeshift players at left back, and then last season they had options. They had the likes of Zinchenko. He didn't play loads of minutes, and when he did, he actually wasn't necessarily playing at left back. He was kind of inverting into that midfield. So it's an interesting one now for Arsenal with the players they've got left, whether or not there is going to be someone else that comes in at left back. But they did have Kivior starting in that role against Fulham at the weekend. So yeah, whether or not he's a season starter every single week, we'll have to see. But at times, someone like Gabriel Magalhaes can play in that kind of left back role, fill in at left centre back and work out that role, a bit like Nathan Ake did for points for Man City last season. But now there's a bit of an unsure thing about Gabriel. Will he actually be sold, right? Because for 3 games now, Gabriel has been benched by Arteta, and it's a bit of a problem. This guy, clearly, he does love this new system that he's playing, which means that Gabriel, and Zinchenko aren't playing, but they have Partey as that right back. Kivior, was the left back. Obviously, we had Tomiyasu the game before that. But it's a bit of a weird one because some people thought that Ben White would play at right back, but that's not been the case. He's been in a centre-back pairing with Saliba. So where does that mean? What does that mean for Gabriel going forward if he stays? Because, the thing about this is that he's been linked with Saudi, and the Saudi transfer window, as we'll go on to talk about with a certain Mohamed Salah, it doesn't shut the window until much, much after the Premier League one shuts tomorrow. So it does leave clubs a bit in the kind of limbo about whether or not their players are going to leave. But, I guess that they're not going to want to sell them if they haven't got a replacement. But I suppose with Arsenal, with Kivior playing at the left back, but also they've got, plenty of centre-backs to come in, like Saliba, like White. And, I think there are options in that Arsenal team. But it was so surprising with how good Gabriel was last season that he's not been playing. And I guess he might just, start him now that Tomiyasu's still... maybe he's still suspended. He did obviously miss the last game, I think. But we still obviously have an injury to Jurriën Timber. So, yeah, weird one. But let's see if Gabriel does move in the end. Talking of that, of course, we know Jurriën Timber did come in from Ajax. And, that was a really unlucky injury. So he's going to be out for a little bit. Declan Rice, we've already mentioned, from West Ham. He's been decent. And so, yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting one. Obviously, Matt Turner facing up against his old side on the opening day, Nottingham Forest against Arsenal. And he's not been brilliant so far for Matt Turner. And also, Forest are looking at another goalkeeper. So whether he'll be number 1, we don't quite know yet. But interesting, that one. David Raya as well. That's a good acquisition from Brentford. So he'll try and challenge Ramsdale for that number 1 spot, but I don't know. I think Ramsdale is fairly safe for now. It's just if Ramsdale starts making a few mistakes, maybe that mistake he made against Fulham with the goal from Andreas Pereira, where a minute in he's out of position, maybe, just maybe, that means the end for Ramsdale, and we could see a Raya start in the game at the weekend against Manchester United. But for such a big game, I don't think Arteta would risk it. We'll have to see, I suppose. So that's Arsenal. Aston Villa have had a fantastic window, it's got to be said. I mean, they had some great signings in the last few seasons, really, for the club that's going in the right direction under a fantastic manager, Unai Emery. They just keep getting these great players, and their kind of club profile keeps stepping up and up. So just got to give congratulations to Aston Villa. Yuri Tielemans, a very good signing, obviously from Leicester. The way I look at it is that Aston Villa midfield is pretty solid with players like McGinn in there, with players like Kamara and Douglas Luiz. But Tielemans is almost like a luxury transfer. I mean, that is really, really nice. And of course, talking of Aston Villa, they do play tonight in the Europa Conference League second leg against Hibernian, but it's pretty much a done deal because of that 5-0 first leg win. And Tielemans, yeah, he could be really good for them. It's just, I think he needs to get into the stride of playing games and having those consistent performances. But certainly, he could be really, really good piece of business. And, I wouldn't have been surprised to see Tielemans turn up at a bigger top 6 team. So for Villa to get that signing in the door and to do it, really well done. So he's not been playing so far, Tielemans. I think he might be injured or actually just kind of eased into the team because he did come off the bench against Burnley. But I would imagine he'll be a starter eventually once Kamara or someone else is rotated out. Talking of Aston Villa, then Ashley Young going to Everton. I mean, look, it is a weird one. Everton have not started the season well. Neither has Ashley Young actually, but it's you kind of feel for Everton because they're having to scrape the barrel with signings like that. Look, he's experienced, but outside of that, he's just not got the legs, and he's not as amazing a player he once was at Manchester United. So I'm not quite sure about that one, but Villa felt that he needed to go. Pau Torres, very good signing, I've got to say, from Villarreal. Did look very shaky on the opening day against Newcastle. Kind of got completely done for a couple of goals, and like that chip for Isak, he was just all over the shop defensively, Torres. But I think he will kind of cement himself into that role. I mean, you saw in the game against Burnley, you saw Matty Cash kind of play really high up and kind of almost on the right wing at times. But with Pau Torres, I think he's pretty likely to start most games because in that kind of 3-4-2-1 formation, you've kind of got Digne and Cash as the fullbacks, and Pau Torres, Diego Carlos came in actually for the first start, I think, against Burnley. So that's interesting with obviously Mings out injured and players like that. I mean, they do have options defensively, Villa, so it's interesting. But yeah, I think Villa still have got very strong defence, and that Torres buy has been just a thing to eventually strengthen that. Nakamba's gone to Luton. Nakamba, fair enough. Not too marvellous in Villa's eyes, but he could do all right at Luton, I guess. Moussa Diaby, he's looked really good at the start of the season, it's got to be said. I mean, goal against Newcastle, goal against Burnley, he's just looked lively. They have now signed, interestingly, a very good player, I've got to say. Like, when I saw this signing, I thought, wow, like this is how good Aston Villa are becoming, that they're bringing in players like this. Nicolo Zaniolo, I mean, he will obviously at times later on push Diaby for minutes, I think, but he'll probably just get eased in from the bench at the moment. But Diaby is still amazing. So yeah, a couple of great players there, Diaby and Zaniolo, who has been brilliant at times for that Italy side. So what a player, really. Then we look again at Morgan Sanson. He's just not really got the minutes he wanted, so he got loaned out to Nice. Then we've also got Jed Steer, the legend Jed Steer, that obviously went in goal for that game away to Chelsea a couple seasons back when everyone brought in Lukaku and he got a double. There's a weird memory I have like that. But yeah, Jed Steer, look, I'm thinking about FPL. I need to just relax myself. FPL, by the way, on my FPL channel, the preview of Game Week 4 will be coming 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. So make sure you turn on your notifications for that. Yeah, Jed Steer, whatever. Like, he was never going to get minutes. Emi Martinez is just always nailed when he's fit. Obviously didn't play against Burnley due to a calf strain, I think. So in came Robin Olsen. And look, he did okay, but I think they always would prefer Martinez in there. Talked about Zaniolo from Galatasaray. And then Aaron Ramsey's a really interesting one. He's gone to Burnley, who, funnily enough, was who he played. He played Villa at the weekend. He came off the bench. So, yeah, interesting that. I think he looks like a great talent, Ramsey. And I think he's going to really progress as a youngster. But whether or not he will do it at Burnley, we'll have to wait and see. And then finally, Cameron Archer. I think that is a bit of a kind of sucker punch, really, for Villa. He's a great player, but whether he's got the minutes he deserves as a young player coming through, I don't think he has. So that's one that Villa will have to take on the chin. But he's gone to Sheffield United, so yeah, really exciting to see how well he does there at the Blades. I mean, he did start, I think, in the game in the week against Lincoln City. So yeah, we'll see how he does. Then we have Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth for me is interesting because not too many household names in my opinion, but obviously Jefferson Lerma leaving was a bit of a blow for them. Ultimately he's gone to Crystal Palace, but they have got other players in that midfield. Jack Stacey to Norwich, okay, fine. Stanislas released. He's a legend of that club, Junior Stanislas, but it's just, he's been there for too long and his time is done, really. This one is interesting, right? Romain Favre, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but he's been transferred in and then immediately loaned out. I mean, that is a weird one. So I don't know what the situation is with that. But Siriki Dembele's also gone out to Birmingham City, and we'll see if he does well there. But yeah, it's not really worked, that transfer. Milos Kerkez, a lot of people talking about him from AZ Alkmaar. I think he might do all right, to be honest, but let's just see if he can, fit in that full-back slot. Travers has gone to Stoke, and we also have Alex Scott, which I have to say is a very good buy from Bristol City. He's been one of the best youngsters in the Championship for at least a season now, so really good bit of business that from Bournemouth. And then on the other flank, Max Aarons, also a very good signing from Norwich. I mean, how Aarons didn't go to a bigger club, previous to this transfer. He looked like he was linked with everyone, but it just never happened. So, yeah, really good signing. Obviously, it'll take a while to bed in, but he could do really well, Max Aarons. Then we got Justin Cliver, who, to be honest, hasn't been starting a lot of games for them so far, but I guess they might just ease him in. But certainly a decent player, on his day from Roma. So, yeah, not a bad window from Bournemouth. And also Tyler Adams, I mean, that's just impressive. Like, I did not see that coming for Bournemouth. Like, Tyler Adams did very well at Leeds. I thought a bigger club would take him. Like, I think he was linked with Chelsea. But, yeah, fair play, Tyler Adams. That is a good bit of business. Then we look at Brentford. Mark Flecken, obviously in goal, coming in for David Raya. And I think, to be honest, he's replaced him really well. He's looked really good the first few weeks as the keeper from Freiburg. Kevin Schade obviously scored his first goal at the weekend for Brentford. Very good goal against Crystal Palace. So he will hope to kind of get the goals in the absence of Ivan Toney. Pontus Jansson was a big loss, but obviously, all good things must come to an end. And they've also gone and signed Nathan Collins from Wolves, which I think will actually help Brentford defence long term. And then just to round off with Brentford, obviously we've talked about David Raya, that's a big loss. Sergi Canos as well, gone to Valencia. A bit of a shame, I guess, he hasn't got the minutes, but he was really good for them, a couple seasons back. So, interesting. Then we move on to Brighton. What a window they had, can I just say. Their recruitment system is just unbelievable. They bring in players ahead of schedule so that they have replacements to come in for when their big players start performing and get linked with big teams. I say big teams. Brighton are looking like a big team, but you know what I mean. The traditional big six, the money makers, the expensive clubs like your Chelseas or your Tottenhams. Whether or not they'll do any well this season, we'll have to wait and see. But Brighton look really good this season. They didn't do so well again in the last one against West Ham, but I think that was just maybe a one-off. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Mahmoud Dahoud from Dortmund is a fantastic piece of business. Really accomplished midfielder. João Pedro, obviously, Watford bias kicking in here, but I don't think he's got the minutes he deserves so far. I think he's got a lot of potential. He can really go to the top, and he can do a lot of good things. And, he's shown already some good things for Brighton in pre-season, but also in that first game against Luton. So, yeah, what a player he could be if he reaches his potential. Milner is a bit of a weird one. I guess it's just a makeshift signing, but to be starting him every single week at right back, you wouldn't have predicted that. And then we also have Alexis McAllister. Now, McAllister, of course, is a big loss for Brighton. Although he's not exactly been amazing for Liverpool so far, and he obviously was given a red card, but then it was rescinded in the game against Bournemouth. So McAllister's still yet to kind of really bed into that Liverpool team, but I think still it's a big loss for Brighton. And we look at Bart Verbruggen. Now, he came in for his first game at the weekend against West Ham, and look, it didn't go to plan, but I think they are going to rotate between Verbruggen and, of course, Jason Steele. So that is an interesting one. Whether or not he'll, get better. He's a young goalkeeper. We'll have to see. Also, Sarmiento, Jeremy Sarmiento has gone to West Brom, so we'll see how he does in the Championship, but he could be decent if he, impresses and then comes back. And then, of course, Igor Julio, one of the players that brought in for the defence. A centre-back, could be decent, but hasn't started, I don't think, so far, so we'll have to see if he comes in. And then, yeah, the only other really ones to rule off are Undav, who, didn't quite get the minutes he wanted last season. Scored a few goals, actually, at the end of the season, but, yeah, unfortunate for him. Robert Sanchez, obviously, didn't work out at Brighton last season, certainly, because he fell out with Graham Potter, reportedly, and that's an interesting one. Going to Chelsea, I don't think he's been brilliant for them so far, but he might take a bit of time to adjust. Moises Caicedo, now for me, it's a massive overpay from Brighton, but maybe it's just Chelsea, saying we will not let you sell him until you pay this much. But I just think Caicedo, whether he's worth the money he was paid, I don't know. He probably isn't. But look, at the end of the day, when he gets into that Chelsea squad properly, he's actually doing the best that he can do, and he's playing as well as he can, he still could be very good. It's not been an ideal start to his Chelsea career. Obviously, he gave away a penalty at West Ham. Looks okay against Luton, but we'll have to wait and see in future matches. Then, of course, we move on to Burnley. Now, Burnley have a very different side now. They're not that 4-4-2 Brexit ball that Sean Dyche had back in the day. They're very much attractive football, possession-based game, a pressing team, a bit like Man City. They are very, very good. So the performances have been good. The results have not, though, so far, and they have been a bit left exposed in defence. But one of the players who's come in permanently after his loan last season in the Championship, Jordan Bayer. Bayer does look decent. I can't lie, he's pretty commanding at the back, but he's come in from Gladbach on a permanent. Also, Ashley Barnes, obviously a bit of an end of an era. He was there for a long time, but he's gone to Norwich to try and help the Canaries in the Championship. Dara O'Shea as well is a decent signing from West Brom. He's got some experience of the Premier League with West Brom. Also, James Trafford, he was a legend for the England under-21s in that Euros final against Spain, and did very well to save that penalty. Talking of saving penalties, absolute legend Mary Earps with a great penalty save, and the fact that she didn't get one of her, her number shirt sponsored and out there for people to buy is outrageous from Nike. But whatever, that's how sometimes these things happen. And England Lionesses absolutely titanic performance in this tournament. So unfortunate. Spain, just on the day, did play the better, unfortunately. But so proud of the girls. Millie Bright, Rachel Daly, so many stars in that team. And, it's got to be said that Mary Earps was superb. So going back to the England men's under-21s, Trafford looks very, very decent. However, it is going to be hard for him because he's going to concede chances, as you've already seen in the opening weeks. Redmond is interesting. I do really like that. That's a good bit of business, I think, from Besiktas. Obviously, he left Southampton a couple seasons back. I don't know whether or not he will be ready and firing to go. A bit, rusty, but he hasn't started every game so far. So let's see if he gets some starts. Then we've got, of course, Wout Weghorst. Finally, this guy has left the Premier League. I'm sorry, Wout, but it's just not worked for you, mate. You've really not been a goal machine, and didn't work at Manchester United, that's for sure. So he's gone to Hoffenheim. Sander Berger is an interesting one, right? Berger, last season for Sheffield United, was a huge player for them. And the fact that they've sold him to a relegation rival in Sheffield United... the fact that Sheffield United have sold Berger to a relegation rival in Burnley, it just bemuses me. Like, what were Sheffield United thinking? I mean, it's an odd one, I think. But anyway, he's gone to Burnley, and Berger, he's looked quite all right so far. Also, we've got Aaron Ramsey, we talked about. Good signing, I think. So, yeah, some interesting ones. Now, Chelsea. What a window it's been. It has been groundbreaking stuff, really, to the point of ludicrous. How are they getting around this with financial fair play? But look, it's Chelsea, right? It's Todd Bowley. This is what he does. He spends money. So we'll have to just, take it with a pinch of salt. But of course, an end of an era, to see Kante leave, he's going to be hard to replace. We know that. But he's gone to Saudi. And Kunku has come in from Leipzig. He could be a big player for them, but really unfortunate injury. Going to be out for till December. Let's see if he can, have that impact when he comes in from injury. Bakayoko's also been released finally. Koulibaly's gone to Saudi as well. Kovacic has gone to Man City, and I don't hate that from Chelsea because they had to kind of sell a few players, but to go to your rival team, Man City, I mean, it's a weird one. But he's looked so good for them so far, Kovacic. He just slots in so nicely. Mendy's also gone to Saudi. Havertz has gone to Arsenal, which we talked about. Loftus-Cheek's finally got his move in Europe to AC Milan. And Nicholas Jackson, this is a big one, of course. He did get his first goal against Luton at the weekend. Whether or not he will be a top goal scorer, bagging lots of goals this season, we'll have to wait and see. But the second half of that Luton game, he did look a lot better and got his goal, his first one. And, it's just a very good pass from Sterling, sliding it in. So, yeah, could do decent. And then, of course, Mason Mount to Manchester United has not worked out for the English midfielder, but we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, he got injured recently, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Azpilicueta's gone to Atletico, and of course, a lot more players here that, to be honest, I don't need to mention. But other than Axel Disasi, who's looked good for Chelsea, obviously scored in the opening day, Pulisic has gone. The likes of Aubameyang has finally gone. Sanchez has come in, who we've mentioned. And also Angelo Gabriel. I'm hearing some people rating this guy, but he's actually been loaned out. So whatever. And then Kepa's left to Real Madrid. Caicedo's come in, of course. And of course, Lavia has come in as well. Ziyech has gone to Galatasaray. Lewis Hall was left, which I think is a shame because he looked good at points last season. And also Andre Santos has been loaned out to Forest. So, yeah, some weird ones for Chelsea. And Roma have brought in Lukaku. So, another loan. Lukaku technically still not left Chelsea. It's just crazy. But, yeah, it is a weird one with their window so far. Palace, Lerma I've talked about. MacArthur and Milivojevic, big players for them in the past, but they've gone. Butland has also done that because he's just not got the games. Robert Street, absolute legend, gone to Cheltenham. And then, of course, we have Zaha, the main one, going to Galatasaray. That's going to be a big loss for them. Loan out for Luke Plange at Carlisle. We've also got Mateus Franca, presumably the replacement for Wilfried Zaha from Flamengo. And also, we've also got there, what's the other one I missed? No, that's pretty much it. So not a lot going on for transfers for Palace. Everton, Mina's left, Townsend's gone, Begovic has gone to QPR, and we've also seen there Ellis Sims go to Coventry. But the one that really interests me about Everton, right, is Arnaut Danjuma, because he didn't exactly excite me when he went to Spurs. He didn't do amazingly well at Villarreal. He did okay, but he was better at Bournemouth. So why Everton have got him in, I'm not quite sure from Villarreal, but, you know, we'll go with the flow. Then we also have Jack Harrison. Now, that's a good signing from Everton. That's actually a good bit of business for once. So fair play, Everton. And another sign they've made is this guy, Beto, right? Or Beto. I don't know if you pronounce it. Now, Udinese is Watford's parent club, so we kind of have a lot of deals exchanged between them. But he looks decent, right? So finally, could Everton have got the striker they need to get them the goals after Calvert-Lewin gets injured every week? So, yeah, not bad. Beto could be decent. So, yeah, fair enough. The other thing I've got to say, Holgate to Southampton's interesting because it's only a loan, but it's a weird one because if Everton get defensive injuries, Holgate might have been important. But, you know, let's see what he does at Southampton in the Championship. Then Fulham is an interesting one because I think they are declining this season. They had a massive overperformance last year, but it's going much the other way this year. They've obviously let go of Mitrovic. He's gone to Saudi. Jimenez has come in. Now, I don't know if he's really that great anymore, but he'll give his best. Joe Bryan also has not got the game time. He's been released. So, yeah, interesting. Naskins Cabano, what a legend. He's been released as well. So, but they brought in Adama Traore alongside Jimenez, which is really interesting. So let's see if he starts games and does well. But also I've got to talk about a little bit of Bassi, right? Bassi from Ajax. This guy's got a lot of praise. What was he doing against Arsenal? What was he doing? On a yellow card, you make that challenge. I mean, it's just I honestly don't believe it. But it's interesting, isn't it? It seems like everyone's opposition's players against Arsenal are getting sent off. You had it with, games Arsenal are in are getting sent off. You've got, obviously, Tomiyasu against Palace. You've got Bassi against Arsenal. Did Forest players get sent off? Oh, no, they got sent off against United, but not against Arsenal. So, yeah, it's a weird one. There's a lot of sending offs. But anyway, so, yeah, going back to this, I mean, look, Castagna, that's a good bit of business from Leicester. Really think he'll do well at Fulham. I hope he does, because he was really good in his time at Leicester. Now, Liverpool. Firmino's gone. Big hole. But can they fill it with Darwin Núñez? He came from Benfica to the Big Reds. Now, admittedly, last season he wasn't great, to put it lightly. But 2 goals against Newcastle off the bench, is that his turning point? Probably not. He'll probably get benched again, but let's see. He could be all right. Chamberlain's gone, obviously. The sale of Carvalho is an interesting one. I thought he was good, actually, when he came in for Liverpool last season. But anyway, Szoboszlai's come in. He looks brilliant, to be honest. He does look very classy on the ball. And also, interestingly, Henderson's gone, I talked about, but another one, Fabinho. I mean, I was so surprised by that. Fabinho, they have nothing left in the midfield, but don't worry, they have got in a number 6, Wataru Endo. Oh, it says Endro. Interesting. I thought it was Endo. Okay, whatever. From Stuttgart. He could be decent. He's been very decent for Japan. So let's see how he does. Then we've got Lucen. Now, Lucen, they're trying to do what they can, right? They've only just got their stadium ready for their first home game of the season this coming weekend against West Ham on Friday night. So look, they have used a lot of money on that. So maybe they haven't had enough money to do transfers, but maybe they're just too small of a club in general to bring in anyone with Premier League experience. But look, that's the way they're going to go. They're probably thinking they're going to get relegated, so they need to get ready for life in the Championship and have that bounce back ability. But we'll have to see. But Sonny Bradley's gone. Obviously, he's a legend at their club. Also, they've brought in a bit of an interesting one, Ogbene. I don't know if he's played actually much for Luton so far, but he was a very good player at Rotherham. So I hope he does play for his sake. Mads Anderson also decent from Barnsley. Taith Chong, now that's a good signing. Fair play, Luton. That's actually not bad because he was really quite good at points for Birmingham last year. I've talked about Nakamba. Issa Kabore could be okay. It's quite attacking fullback from a loan at Man City. I mean, he's been out a few teams, Issa Kabore, but he's definitely got some ability. And then we've got Fred Onyedinma, who's obviously been a regular at Rotherham, so a bit of a switcheroo there with who I talked about earlier, Ogbene, going to Rotherham. So hang on, how does that make sense? Ogbene's gone to Luton. Oh yeah, sorry. Onyedinma's gone to Rotherham. That's what I meant. Kaminsky's come in, started the first few games, but I don't think he'll be the number one because after the Chelsea game, who they got battered in, I think Tim Krul might come in for the West Ham game, but we'll have to wait and see. Barkley, very interesting signing. Obviously, he didn't exactly do well again for his time at Aston Villa, and then he went out in a season in Europe, I think. But yeah, free agent, come in. Ross Barkley, could he do well? We'll have to wait and see. Jacob Brown has come in as well from Stoke. I talked about Tim Krul. So yeah, some interesting ones there. City, Gundogan's a big loss, of course. He has to be, right? He was so good for them for so many seasons. Kovacic a good signing. Trafford has left. Kabore's gone. So a lot of loans out, really, once again for this City side. But Mahrez going, obviously gone to Saudi. Bit of a loss there. But Josko Gvardiol is a very good signing from RB Leipzig, so he can slot into that defence very nicely. Talking of defence, Laporta's left to Saudi, and Jeremy Doku's come in now from Rennes, and we're hearing that Matheus Nunes is likely to join as well before the window shuts. So that is a very interesting one. He got sent off recently, didn't he, against Brighton? So it's a bit of a weird one in my view. But anyway, Matheus Nunes. There was talk of Eze, but I don't think that's going to happen now. United, bit of a weird one for United. I mean, a good one in some ways because they have got rid of a lot of, dead wood, like Phil Jones. Sorry, Phil Jones. But De Gea's obviously gone. He was released. So in came Andre Onana, who I do feel is a very good goalkeeper. But the start to the season not exactly been great. I mean, he should have had a penalty conceded in the game against Wolves. Didn't look great against Tottenham. And then especially didn't look good against Forest, conceding 2 against them in the first 4 minutes. And that first goal from Awani, I mean, what was Onana doing? He was hopping and skipping about all over the place on the line. It was a weird one. But no, I still feel will do well at Man United. It's just, there's always going to be a bit of time to bed in, but he's made some saves, to be fair. Mason Mount, a bit of a weird one. I don't really understand that signing, but, let's see if he, once he comes back from injury, does fit in nicely. Tellez has left to Saudi. Alanga's gone to Forest, which I think is good for him. Get some minutes in those legs, because he does deserve it. He's a decent player for Alanga. Rasmus Højlund, interesting this one. He could be fit for this weekend's game against Arsenal. He might be in the squad, or he might start the game. We'll have to see. But I don't know whether or not he'll be brilliant from the get-go, because he's still young. But it could be decent, certainly in the future. Fred is also left, which, to be honest, I'm gutted about, because, Fred at points last season was actually quite good. And the reason I say I'm gutted, I'm not a United fan, I'm a Watford fan, but my FPL team name last season was, at the start of the season, hanging by a Fred. Hanging by a piece of wool, like a cloth, a thread, you know what I mean, but it's a little play on words there. But yeah, no, he's gone now, so it's no longer hanging. He's just snapped off. Then Johnny Evans. This is the weirdest transfer I think of the whole summer, because after getting relegated with Leicester, how have Man United thought, oh yeah, let's get back an old player we used to have and have him as a bench player? I mean, I guess that they thought Maguire would leave. It hasn't left yet. There's talks of him to West Ham. But Johnny Evans? Really? I mean, he's just so injury prone. So it's a weird one. Brandon Williams to Ipswich. Hope he does well, because he's a very good player. He deserves more game time. He got some at Norwich recently, a couple seasons. But yeah, I do feel that he does deserve more game time. And then finally, Newcastle, to round up these northern teams. Now, Newcastle obviously have had this takeover, but they also did well this season to let go of a few, dead wood, right? So Matty Longstaff, that is an interesting one. Like, obviously, he did have that first goal against United. It did really well. People were saying this guy's the ginger wonder kid, but I was hoping Watford would snap him up. He's not bad, but anyway, never happened. Chris Wood has come in to Nottingham Forest, so he's left Newcastle now. Yeah, it's a shame about Chris Wood at Newcastle, because I thought he'd do really well when he left Burnley, but it didn't really work out. So Forest, maybe he can do a bit better, but even then, right, only when Awoniyi's out do I feel like Wood's going to start. He did score against Sheffield United, to be fair to him, but I don't know. Tonali, very good signing for Newcastle. That is a brilliant piece of business. He just controls that midfield, and obviously not the most attacking midfielder, but did score on the opening day against Villa. But I do feel, he's going to really sit in that midfield alongside Bruno Guimaraes. Very, very nice signing there. Harvey Barnes. Now, Harvey Barnes, for me, is a bit of a weird one. And I know you're going to say, what? It's not a weird one. But if you're going to buy Harvey Barnes, who I think has got a lot of potential, why are you not starting him? Like, at Leicester, he did actually get some rotation, but it wasn't that often. But most weeks, he was a starting player. And my opinion is that Harvey Barnes is a lot better than Anthony Gordon. Now, Gordon, okay, he's not bad. I'll give him some credit. But I still feel that Barnes is better. So the fact that he's not started games, for me, is a bit baffling. But anyway, he's left Leicester to the Toon. And then talking of the Toon, Jamal Lewis, hopefully he does really well at Watford. But yeah, I still feel there's a player there. It's just that he's had a lot of kind of injuries, or he's not been played for Newcastle. But talking of injuries, he's currently got one, right, for Watford. So that's why he hasn't made his debut yet. But hopefully he does really well. I do like him as a player. So Maximan's left to Saudi. Yet again, another player going to Saudi. Darlow's gone to Leeds. Livramento, really nice transfer, this one. I do think this could do well. If he stays fit, Livramento was looking good for Southampton. So I do think that's a good bit of business. Lewis Hall as well. I mean, they're buying fullbacks like there's no tomorrow. But Lewis Hall at Chelsea, he looks a baller. He really does. I mean, I know he's young. He's got a lot way to go, but he's got potential for sure. And then, so moving on, we've got Nottingham Forest. Also, can I just say, Fraser, how long has he been at that club and not left the club? And now he goes to Southampton in the Championship. I mean, yeah, okay, they might bounce back, but it's a weird one from Fraser. I guess no Premier League team would want him, really. But anyway, sorry, Fraser, if you're watching this. I didn't mean that at all, but you know what I mean. It's tricky to get in the Premier League. He's probably not watching, though. Forest, then. We talked about Woods. Colback has been at the club for a little bit. Obviously, I had it time at Newcastle as well, but he's been at Forest in the Championship. Yeah, didn't really get the minutes, so that's fair enough. Andre Ayew was such a weird signing last season, because it was like, he came in, I thought, is he actually going to play? And believe it or not, he didn't. So, yeah, he's been released. Cafu as well. Lingard was a nightmare transfer, never worked. Lyle Taylor as well, just didn't get the minutes. Ola Aina from Fulham, really interesting. I say from Fulham, from Torino. He was at Fulham a couple seasons back. I think that's a good signing. I mean, he's not actually been playing too much. He's had a few injuries at the start of the season. But, yeah, decent fullback, Premier League experience, can pop up with a goal or two as well. Not bad. Elanga, good signing. Surridge has gone to MLS, so that's interesting. Young player, and he's going to MLS. It's a bit of a weird one. Also there, we've got Matt Turner, who talked about coming from Arsenal. Steve Cook didn't really play for Forest last season that much, so he's gone to QPR. And then we've also got Scarpa leaving. Montiel, what a signing this is for Forest. It might only be a loan, but oh my days. A World Cup penalty winner. I mean, this is just mind-blowing. How do Forest pull this off? I do not quite know. But yeah, Montiel is a Forest loan player. It's incredible. But yeah, Andre Santos as well. That's interesting. Coming in for Chelsea's Santos. Whether or not he'll do well, we'll have to see. And then O'Brien's gone to Middlesbrough. Interesting. Sheffield United. We're getting to the home straight. I know you want to see my predictions, so I knew this was going to be a long one, but just bear with me here. Sheffield United, though, what are we saying for them? What say we them? Well, Sharp, the legend for Sharp, has been released. It was bound to happen eventually. The same goes for O'Connell and Ender Stevens. Stevens has actually now gone to Stoke. Good signing for them. Anis Slimane, I don't even know who that is, to be honest, but he's come in from Brøndby. Yasser Larouchi, he's actually decent. I've heard of him before. So he's come in from Troyes. It could be okay. Benny Traore as well. Iliman Ndiaye. Why, oh why, would you sell Ndiaye? I mean, maybe they had no choice with the signing, but it's an odd one because that was the kind of... If they had any chance of staying up, I thought that guy would just drag them through, kicking and screaming to win at some points. But no, instead, this guy is sold, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So, fair enough, there's probably external factors going on, but still a weird one for me. Still a bit of a weird one. But yeah, other ones, Austin Trustees come in from Arsenal. He could be okay, to be honest. We'll have to see whether or not he, gets the minutes that he properly deserves. He's not really got much of a look in at Arsenal. But a fullback, could be quite attacking, could be okay for that Sheffield United defence. And then Sander Berger, we talked about him, a weird one in my view. Vinicius Souza's come in from Lommel. We've got Gustavo Hamer. Now this is a good bit of business. Gustavo Hamer, or Harmer, however you pronounce it, is a baller, right? And I've said time and time again that how has he stayed at Coventry? How has no one come in for him? And now they have. And what a goal he scored at Forest. That was just, honestly, breathtaking. What a way to get your first goal for your new club. It was really, really special. So I talked about Ndiaye going, but hopefully for them, for their sake, this guy can replace some of those goals because he's got a lot of ability. Tom Davies is a really interesting one. Now, I don't know if this is the Tom Davies from Everton or not, but if it is, interesting. Very interesting. And then finally, Cameron Archer, very good signing from Aston Villa. I think he was a player that a lot of Championship clubs wanted, but to get him in, that is a boost for Sheffield United's goal chances. And also, recently, Luke Thomas has loaned from Leicester to Sheffield United. And I think he is actually a very good young talent. Very, very impressed with him a couple seasons back for Leicester. So, good bit of business that actually for Sheffield United. Fair play. But I still feel they're going to struggle overall. Spurs, we're getting to the home stretch now, so just bear with me. Kulusevski, I thought he'd already been made a permanent transfer, but I must have missed that. No, now he's permanent from Juventus. Moore is left, obviously a bit of an end of an era thing there. Talking of end of an era, we all know Harry Kane to Bayern. Will he come back? Well, we don't know, but it's interesting without him. Guglielmo Vicario, I think that's how I've pronounced it right, from Empoli has come in. He's actually been quite good for them in goals, so fair play. But the main one, James Maddison, what a difference he's made to that midfield. Coming in from the Foxes. Winks has gone the other way as well, so a little swap deal there. Solomon, I don't know whether he'll play any minutes, but obviously he was at Fulham last season. And Mickey van der Ven has got a lot of love from the Spurs fans. He's actually not been too bad, to be fair. So, and I don't know whether Alejo Veliz, this young forward, is really going to be the replacement for Kane, but maybe they'll get some more goals out of Richarlison at some point. Joe Rodon's gone to Leeds. Alfie Devine, not very divine for the teams in League Two, because Port Vale have signed him. We also have Jed Spence. Finally, he goes to another team. I mean, I was just so excited to see Jed Spence in the Premier League with Forest last season. And when he went to Spurs, I was like, guarantee he won't play. And that's exactly what happened. So, sorry, I apologise to Port Vale fans. Port Vale in League One, so apologies. Jed Spence, gone to Leeds. Let's see if it works out in the Championship. And then finally, West Ham. Masuaku's gone. Lanzini's gone. Rice has left. Big end of an era for West Ham. Scamacca's also gone. But Edson Alvarez, very interesting signing that. Midfielder. Ward-Prowse has already fitted in like a glove. And they brought in a couple of interesting ones. Mavropanos, ex-Arsenal defender, could be decent. But what a signing this is. Mohamed Kudus. Now, they was linked with Brighton at one point, but he's ended up going for the Hammers, which maybe was the right decision after they beat Brighton at the weekend. Wink, wink. But yeah, Kudus could be quality. Let's see if he gets a run out against Luton. And then finally, we've got Wolves. What we say in Wolves? Well, not a lot, to be honest. Not a lot. It's not looking good, Brev. I mean, Matt Doherty, say what you like about him. He's pretty old. They've also now just signed Enzo Gonzalez from Libertad. But there's a lot of sales here. And I'm worried. I'm worried about this Wolves team. I can't lie. I mean, look, they did create chances in the first few weeks of the season. But still, fam, like, it's not looking good in my view. But look, that's what we're looking at the moment. I don't know. The way I think is that this window could be right to the wire. But whether or not that massively influences our match week 4 predictions, we will have to see, but let's get into them without further ado. I know it's been a bit longer than usual, this one, so just bear with me there. But going into match week number 3, how did we get on with our predictions? I mean, look, at the end of the day, it was a tough week, I think, for many. I got 23 in match week 3, which is all right, but this is how I got that 23. Chelsea versus Luton, I said Chelsea 3, Luton 0. Bang on the money. Thank you very much. We love that. 7-pointer for me. Remember, it's 7 for the correct score, 5 for the goal difference and the result, and then 3 for just the result. But what did we say, everyone else, for the game between Chelsea and Luton? Well, I can in fact reveal that Douglas said a 2-0 to Chelsea, so close but no cigar. Then we also had Colm, who said 3-0 Chelsea. Well done, Colm. And then we also had a prediction from Mr. Footballer Loons. Thank you, mate. 2-1 to Chelsea. So, yeah, it was nice to be in the perfect camp alongside Colm for that fixture. But let's look at the rest of it, shall we? We had Bournemouth v Spurs. I said a 3-1 Spurs. It was in the end 2-0 Spurs. So, yeah, correct goal difference there. 5 points. We take that. What was the other predictions? Douglas said 2-1, so not quite, but close. 2-1 was Colm as well. And then, in the end, we had a 3-2 Spurs from Mr. Footballer Loons. So, yeah, no one getting that one right, but still some close calls there. Then I said 3-1 Arsenal v Fulham. Arsenal were not great, I can't lie. And they ended up, failing to win the game, conceding late on through João Paulinho. And, yeah, 2-2. Great result for Fulham. But not good for the predictions. I said 3-1, so just got the kind of distribution of the goals the wrong way around, even if it was the right number of goals. Mr. Footballer Loon said 2-0 Arsenal, so that was wrong. Colm said 3-0 Arsenal against his own team as well. I think Colm might be a Fulham fan, so that's a bit of a crazy one. I might have misremembered that, but I think he is. And then also Douglas said 3-1 to Arsenal against Fulham, so no one getting that one right. I said 2-0 Brentford against Palace. Now, for this one, actually, to be fair, that was a good prediction, right? Because I did think Brentford, with the form they've been in so far, would win that game. And Palace have looked okay, to be honest, but nothing groundbreaking. But fair enough, Palace. They pulled off a point at the Brentford Community Stadium with goals from Kevin Schade and interesting Joachim Andersen with the goal for Palace. So, yeah, a bit of a weird one. But no points for me there in that 2-0 prediction. Douglas, though, went for a 2-1 Brentford, so again, wrong. Then he said, Colm said a 2-2, actually. So, correct result here and the correct goal difference, because when you have a draw and it goes right, you get the goal difference because it's obviously 0. So, yeah, 5 points. Well done, Colm, there. And then also we had Mr. Footballer Loons. He went for a interesting 2-1 Brentford as well. So, yeah, neither of us getting those points there. Then we had Everton against Wolves. I went for a 1-0 Everton. Then I forget how bad Everton are. 1-0 Wolves. Now, I'm not saying that this is anything on Wolves, because they are still... they played well against Everton. I thought they were the better team. They probably deserved to win. Blah, yada, yada, yada. But still, they weren't brilliant, Wolves. They weren't amazing. It's just that Everton defence are just really, really leaky, and they can't score the goals. But I talked about Beto. Scored in midweek in the Carabao Cup. Now, it's only the Carabao Cup, right? Don't get too overexcited. But could he do well for them? Well, he's got a nice fixture to do that, away to Sheffield United this week. But, not the right prediction from me. I said 1-0. It was, of course, 1-0, but the wrong way around. But what did you say, Douglas? Well, Douglas went for a interesting game of 1-0 Wolves. So fair play, bang on the money from you. Also, Colm went for 1-0 Wolves, so I'm getting a bit outnumbered here. Then we had Mr. Footballer Loons. You went for a 0-0, which is a pretty safe prediction because they're pretty bad attacks, both of them. But yeah, fair play, Colm and Douglas, both getting that bang on the money. Then I said 2-1 2-1 United Forest, 2 Manchester United. Well, correct goal difference here. It was 3-2 in the end by the 1 goal. But, oh my days, Forest were just so good at the start. United were so dreadful. And a classic Manchester United recovery from goals down. And they ended up squeezing past them with a penalty from Bruno Fernandes. So, yeah, very good win for United in the end. But not good signs, to be honest, in the overall picture. But I don't think many would have said a 5-goal thriller for that. Douglas said a 2-0 United game. 2-1 for Man United was what Colm said. And then, what did Mr. Footballer Toon say? Well, he can in fact said 2-1 United against Forest. So, same as me, just the 5 points, not the 7. Then we had Brighton against West Ham. I went with a 3-1 to Brighton. It ended up being 3-1 to West Ham. This was one of the shocks of the weekend for sure. Fair play, West Ham. They were fantastic on the break. Brighton were very frustrating at times. They just didn't click in the attack like they used to. There wasn't the passing moves, there wasn't the space to work in. Maybe that was a bit of good defending from West Ham. Areola was superb with the very good performance. Obviously saved the penalty against Chelsea last week as well. So yeah, he's looking good. Whether or not he stays keeper, we'll have to wait and see. But look, very, very good from West Ham. Jared Bowen's in good form. Antonio as well, 2 goals and 2. So yeah, very, very nice. And not good for the predictions, basically. Completely the wrong way around for me. And we also had Mr. Football Loons go for a 3-1 to Brighton. What did Douglas say? Well, Douglas said, interestingly, again, a Brighton win, 2-1 Brighton. And then Colm, again, 2-1 Brighton. So, yeah, just when I thought maybe I was the only one that had got it wrong. Nope, everyone else also thought Brighton. So it shows the Premier League is the best league in the world. You just cannot predict it. Now, Burnley against Villa, but we're going to try anyway to predict it. Burnley against Villa, 3-1 Villa. Very good performance from them after they had the midweek game against Hibernian. They just looked irresistible in attack. And Matty Cash, wow, that was unbelievable. You don't often see that. 2 goals from him and a goal for Diaby. He's looked brilliant for them, Moussa Diaby. And the first goal of the season, really, for Burnley from Foster. Yeah, okay, Foster. It's a decent goal. Whether or not Burnley will be a goal-scoring machine this season, we'll have to see. But, yeah, no, not a great result for Burnley. All right for my predictions, though. I said 2-1 West Ham, so 3 points there. Sorry, not West Ham, Villa, I mean. Getting the Clarets and Blues mixed up against Burnley. So, yeah, 3 points for me there. Then we also had a 2-1 Villa from Colm, so just the 3 points. Douglas said a 2-0 Aston Villa, so correct goal difference there. And then we had Mr. Footballer Loons going with Burnley 0, Villa 1. So, interesting that. Just the 3 points for you, the correct result. Now, Sheffield United Man City. I went for a 3-0 City. I thought that was a great prediction. It ended up being 2-1 City. And it was much tighter than I thought, right? Sheffield United getting a late goal from Jayden Bogle. To be fair, he's now scored against both Manchester clubs, so fair play to him. But yeah, it was a tight game. Foden obviously didn't start, but he came on and, was involved in the build-up. But Rodri's got a couple of goals now. It's quite crazy, really. But he does this every season, so maybe he's just going a bit early this season. But yeah, no, just the 3 points for me there then. And Douglas said 3-0 as well, so just 3 there. Colm said 4-0 City, so that's even further away, but still 3 points. And then we also had Mr. Footballer Loons that said 3-0, so just the 3 points for all of us there. And finally, the weekend rounded off with at St James's Park, a crazy, crazy game, which Newcastle dominated, really, had chances to kill it off, didn't quite take those chances, especially that Barnes sweaty to Wilson. Like, you've got to sweaty it to him, just as you did in the first game against Aston Villa. But no, he decides to go for the shot, which is blocked, and then, wow, Darwin Núñez, where was that from? Because he didn't start, and he came on, and he just looked a different player. 2 fantastic finishes, it's got to be said, both into that bottom left corner. No chance for Nick Pope. And, it's just a crazy result. Off the bench, completely turns the game on its head, and that is why we love the Premier League. But yeah, I didn't see that one coming, to be honest, because I thought it was going to be a high-scoring 2-2, but not too far off. 0 points for me there. Then we had 1-1 draw between those two from Mr. Footballer Loons, so nothing there. We also had a 3-1 Newcastle from Colm, so he was feeling Newcastle, but that went and backfired, so nothing there. And of course, the Liverpool fan, Douglas, he went with his team, of course he did. 3-2 Liverpool, so correct goal difference there, 5 points. So yeah, 23 points, all in all, not a great week, but we go again for match week 4, hoping for better things. Let's get into it. Now, Luton v West Ham on this Friday night on Sky Sports. Luton on TV for a second week in a row, and I could say the same thing actually for West Ham. West Ham for the third week in a row. I do feel this will be a bit of a mismatch because West Ham have been so superb this season. Chelsea did batter Luton 3-0 with goals from Nicholas Jackson and also 2 from Raheem Sterling. But I don't think that was just Chelsea being really good. I think it was just Luton defensively. They do look to have a few problems. Now, of course, you've got to factor in the fact that this is a first home game for them, so the fans will be on top of those West Ham players, making it tough for them. It is quite a toxic atmosphere there. But I think West Ham still can do the job. Just about. Luton 0, West Ham 2. Then we've got Sheffield United v Everton. A big relegation rumble for sure. And this is a presentable chance for Sheffield United to win this one. Because, Forest was a decent fixture. They lost that. Big blow. But that was an away trip. This time a home game of favourable chance to win the game. Because Everton have been absolutely woeful under Sean Dyche so far this season. I just don't know where this is going to go. I think this could possibly be a 1-goal game because neither side has got loads of quality. Will Beto make his debut for Everton in the Premier League? Will Cameron Archer do the same for Sheffield United? We'll have to wait and see. But I think ultimately this could be a game that Sheffield United squeeze a win. And I worry for Everton. I really do. But I'm going to say Sheffield United 2, Everton 1. Then we've got Brentford against Bournemouth. Now, I do feel this will be a Brentford victory just because they've looked so impressive this season. Bournemouth are still in a bit of a transitional phase with, the new manager, Iraola, coming in. Look, he's been okay, and Bournemouth actually have played well in games, in moments. Against Liverpool, they looked good. Against Spurs, they had moments. But I still feel Brentford are the stronger, especially with the home advantage. I'll say Brentford 3, Bournemouth 0. Goal scorers for Brentford, Brian Mbumo, Johan Wissa, and then the third goal for Brentford, Rico Henry. Then we've got Burnley against Tottenham Hotspur. Now, I do feel this will be a Spurs win because I've really been impressed by Spurs. A 2-0 win up at Bournemouth last time out. James Maddison is so central to that team, and he has just been so good. Ultimately, they've got other players there like Pape Matar Sarr that have looked decent as well. But the strike force is a bit of a concern with Richarlison. Will he get into the goals? Maybe this is a chance for him to do that. But I'm going to say Burnley to lose this just about. Burnley 1, Spurs 3. Then we've got Chelsea against Forest. I do feel this is a game that Chelsea will win, but I've got to say I was very much impressed against Manchester United. I know Forest, that United team is looking defensively leaky, so that maybe was a factor. But I don't think Chelsea are perfect defensively anyway. I mean, Luton was maybe a bit easier, but against West Ham and against Liverpool, the Chelsea defence didn't look brilliant. And Reece James is still out injured. Malo Gusto looked brilliant in the game against Luton, it's got to be said. But I do feel that this Chelsea side can win this one. They just need to watch out for Taiwo Awoniyi because at this rate, he's hunting down Jamie Vardy's 11 in a row. He's just unbelievably, 7 games I think it is now, stretching back to last season, games in a row he scored in. It's just incredible. And he did score actually a brace in this fixture last season. So watch out for those people that are, not worried about the Forest attack because Awoniyi could do it. Raheem Sterling, obviously, he's not been included in the Chelsea squad for that midweek game against AFC Wimbledon, but apparently he was just rested. And also, he wasn't picked by Gareth Southgate for the upcoming international break after this week. So, yeah, a bit of a weird one that, but he'll probably shrug that off. He'll go again after he looked very good in the last game for Chelsea. Man City Fulham is up next. What was my prediction? Chelsea v Forest. I'm going to say 3-1 Chelsea. City Fulham next up. I do feel this is going to be a fairly comfortable one for City. Fulham, I'm just a bit worried by. I mean, I know they got the point up at Arsenal, which was a good result. Maybe Arsenal were a bit leaky at the back, but I think City will still find a way to get the victory here. Man City 4, Fulham 1. I know, a bit of a hammering. I think 2 goals will come from Julian Alvarez and then 2 from Erling Haaland, because this guy is a robot, let's not forget. Now, Brighton against Newcastle's up next, and I do feel this will be the game of the weekend. Big shout from me, because there's some decent games this week, but I just feel that both of these sides have got such good players. The likes of Alexander Isak, the likes of Kieran Trippier, the likes of Bruno Guimaraes, and Sandro, I should say, Tonali. And then Brighton, Karu Mitoma, Pervis Estupinian. You've got players like Joao Pedro if he plays. You've got players like Evan Ferguson if he plays. It's just a brilliant matchup. 2 teams that really overperformed and got European football last season. So it'll be a fascinating game. I hope it's not a 0-0 because it has been in the past. Quite a scoring fixture. But I'm going to say this is going to be an entertaining draw, I think. Brighton 2, Newcastle 2. Goal scorers for Newcastle will say Alexander Isak and Kieran Trippier. And for Brighton, I think Pervis Estupinian and Karu Mitoma. Now it's Palace against Wolves. For this one, I do feel Palace get the victory, because although Wolves did look okay against Everton last time out and Sasa Kalajic got his first goal for Wolves, it was a bit of a scrappy win, right? And I think Palace have played some good football so far this season. Haven't got loads of goals, it's got to be said, but they've got a decent side. Eze's looked very, very dangerous in recent games. I think he will finally score. Palace 2, Wolves 0. Eze with the first one, and then the second for Crystal Palace, I think, will come from Odsonne Edouard. Now, it's Liverpool via Villa, and I do feel this is a victory for Liverpool, but they are going to be worried about that defence. With no Van Dijk after his red card against Newcastle, with Villa looking free scoring. I mean, 5 against Hibernian. They also then hit 3 against Burnley. I mean, look, this side, Villa, is so impressive. And I don't think they should go to Anfield with any fear. I mean, you have to remember that 7-2 a few seasons back with a Watkins hat-trick. So I think Liverpool can definitely win this game. But I do feel Villa will get a couple of goals because they're good enough to do that. So I'll say Liverpool 3, Villa 2 in an absolute corker. Villa score first through Moussa Diaby. Then second Villa goal, I think, will come from Luka Dean. But then Liverpool goal scorers will say Mohamed... Jokes. He's going to Saudi. No, Liverpool goal scorers will say... no, I don't think Salah will score, actually. I'll say Luis Diaz. I'll say... who else have they got? Dominic Szoboszlai. And I'll go for... Andrew Robertson. That's my picks. 3-1 Liverpool is my... 3-2 I should say. Diaby, and the other one I said, Digne. Former actually Everton player, of course, Luka Dean. And then finally, Arsenal Man United. I know it's been a long one, but we've just hit the hour mark. Arsenal Man United. Now, this is interesting because on Sky Sports, under the lights, we know how good this game was last season, right? 3-2 Arsenal, Eddie Nketiah doing the bits. But Nketiah, I have to call you, mate, because it's not good news. Gabriel Jesus, for your sake, is back in full training. So it's possible, very likely actually, I think, that Jesus starts this big matchup. But what does that mean? Well, I think this Jesus Arsenal team is better than without him. But Jesus, we've got to remember, is very wasteful, right? So he does have a lot of chances until he scores. But I do feel as well, Manchester United looked better against Forest. Better is as much as I'll go, though, because they did look still defensively a bit of a mess. So I think it's going to be high scoring. I think both sides are going to score goals, but I will just sway towards Arsenal for this one. So I'm going to say Arsenal to win this by 2-1. Manchester United goal scorer Bruno Fernandes, but then Arsenal score through Bukayo Saka, and the second for the Gunners, I think, will be, yes, you've heard it first, people, up front for Arsenal, Gabriel Jesus, the former City boy, of course, against his former rivals. Now, those are my predictions for match week number 4. I hope you have enjoyed. I know it's been a long one, but as I say, I wanted to cover a lot with the window dropping and closing, I should say, tomorrow at 11 p.m. So watch out for that. Also, watch out. I'm going to give a little plug here to FPL Juice, the FPL Juice show, because I talked about my FPL video. They're going to be doing their first ever deadline stream of FPL tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. in the afternoon. So make sure you tune in for it because it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. FPL Juice always is. So a little bit of a plug there at the end, but hope you have enjoyed. Get your score predictions in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.